Can y'all hear me? Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. To some of y'all, and peace out to the rest of you. Hit the share button because the message is more important than the messenger. I decided this time I was only going to play that one track, give people enough time to get in. But right now, it does appear that we've got 7 in. I'll ask you all to just hit that share button for somebody that might benefit. Shouts out to Abdul Malik Abu Thalatha, father of 3. I like that. To take a Harden. Um, and to Indigo Flow, I mean Blendigo Flow. Um, Forgive me for starting late, but as y'all know, my son is out of the country, and he might join me soon, inshallah, roughly a week from now, Lord willing, hopefully so. Um, he what's good, KM? So we've been working on a lot of things trying to get that together. He's actually not feeling well, and so he's done a good bit of research and information gathering on behalf of SYSBM and Passport Bros and other Reblatrians. And he took this upon himself because even though he was discussing marriage, he decided, well, listen, let me um, find out about a place that a lot of BMPTs don't go. And he decided that he would gather some info because where he's going is considered third world. And what we've learned from this is that there is a major difference between the second world and the third. Now, we know the difference between the first and everything else. But there's a difference between the second world and the third world. And we're learning this now. The second world, oftentimes, is simply a nation where things are generally developed as infrastructure, but not as much in the countryside. It is usually where you have first world conditions in cities, second world conditions in smaller cities, and third world conditions in villages. Um, that sounds like every nation until you realize that it's the middle uh, cities, the medium sized cities that really make the difference. Where I live would be considered to a certain extent first world. You have first world conditions in the cities and you have them in medium sized cities. You go into the villages and then you've got second world conditions. You only have third world conditions in some of the worst neighborhoods of anywhere. And to be honest with you, a lot of times the infrastructure, at least the water and electricity, are still there. Um, there is something called a third world intellect. I hate to say this, but there is. When we meet people from third world countries and we meet them in second and first world nations, we're meeting the people with the sharpest minds. But what my son and I have both seen is that when you go into many places, you're going to come across folks who did not get a visa to leave, and they're stuck there. And it's not always a language barrier. Sometimes it is, but even additional to that, there is really just a tendency on the part of many people to just tune others out. Just you'd almost wonder they got attention deficit disorder. The other thing too is that I have come to realize that there is a tendency on the part of a lot of people, especially if they don't get a lot of foreign visitors, to not admit when they don't understand something. Walaikum salam, Aisada Muhammad. There is that tendency. And now here in Saudi, there are Arabs that will pretend like they don't speak English, even if they do speak it. And I find that to be funny as all get out. Um, because, they got to keep it real. And I've talked about this before with them. What I found here is that people from India and Pakistan and Bangladesh don't tell you that they don't understand you when they don't understand you. They just, okay, they'll bobble their head or they'll nod their head and then just do whatever they think you said. But if they make a mistake and you try to tell them they made an error, they are not going to try to correct it. They're not going to own up to it. They're not going to say, my bad. They'll try to pretend like they understand when they don't. They just assume. And there have been days when I've cost some of them their jobs, and I don't care that I cost them their jobs, and I don't care what happened to them afterwards, not because they didn't understand, but because they lied, pretended like they did. For those who can hear their comment in the background, don't worry, because I'm a traveler right now. I already prayed the two prayers combined, so don't bother yourself thinking that I'm skipping it. It's not that. I already prayed it as a combined Lord and Asa prayers as a traveler because I'm in the city in which I used to live, but I don't live here anymore. As a matter of fact, my wife and girlfriend had to go visit her friend who's ill, and then another one. So I'm here with this 5G internet at her apartment. Now, where I live now, the internet is really fast at work, but it sucks at home. When I leave work and I go home, my internet it's crap. It is terrible. And people sit up and say stuff to me like, "Can I call you?" F no, you can't call me. For one, WhatsApp calls don't work here. They blocked it. And if I go to a VPN, then the connection gets slower, so the sound's going to get cut. And then Telegram calls work in Saudi, but um, like I said, my internet's bad, so I hear every other word, and I'm sitting up there just getting a migraine trying to understand what people are saying. So some people I have to tell them, stop asking me if you can call me. No, you can't call me. You just got to send a voice note. I'm at work, and um, I'm not taking personal calls at work. And then when I get home, we don't have internet like that there. Maybe in a year or so, I don't know. But right now, no, it's slow internet. It's a weak signal. It's a gamble. You may tell me something important, and I don't know it. And then later you say, I told you on the phone this, that, and the other. No, you didn't. And I really won't be lying. I won't know because I didn't hear it. So now, alhamdulillah, I got this time, and I thought I'd go live and update you all and also catch up with y'all. Um, but so my son is about to wrap up that trip, inshallah. And good thing is he's got his visa. We'll work on the ticket next. Um, and speaking of which, that reminds me, before I go further, I better give shouts out to everybody that came through on the Cash App. Yeah, let me give shouts out to Aspire Studios from the bottom of my black heart and from the depths of my black mind. Thank you. MLR, you always come through, and thank you for coming through for not only me, but for a bunch of other content creators as well. And I mean that, you really do. Same with Mojo. Thank you for coming through because you come through for us, not just for me, Mojo, but for us. I've been hearing people thank you for that. Um, S. Jock and A. Dean, you know who you are. Deshaun Dub and Armando, thank you guys as well. Um, Mel R, I appreciate you coming through. Uh, R. Campbell and Gayla Knight, thank y'all so much. Um, to tell the truth, I haven't really posted the videos in Facebook a lot, but walaikum salam, cynical optimist. Um, but I've already been backing them up on Odyssey, and there are probably going to be some of them where I go in just nasty on some folks. And I'm probably going to put them only on Odyssey, but I'll put the links to them here in the community tab if I have to do that. Odyssey pays cryptocurrency that's never really taken off, but it does pay something. Um, that's the good thing about it. And it and sometimes what I can't do is that if there's some things that I wanted to put on Patreon, well, my account got deactivated because I stated that if you are in the West and the Western chicks dig you as a whole, you're doing something wrong. And if you're not, it's because they think you're doing something wrong. I stated that. The thing was, when I put that on Patreon, I also had that on YouTube. I just had it as a bonus for my members on Patreon. But um, somebody, because it was on YouTube, turned around and reported it to Patreon. And Patreon deactivated the account. There was some real dicks for that. I thought that they were okay with free speech. And I really did not sit up here and castigate anybody for anything that is beyond their control. I didn't castigate anybody, male or female, because of where they were born, but because of the culture that they choose to follow. And that's made for an interesting experience a lot of times because as a teacher in Saudi, you already have to be disrespectful of the culture. You can't respect every single culture. Saudi does not have one culture, it has actually several. But when it comes to academics, it's generally weak around the kingdom. So you have to be somewhat disrespectful of the academic culture in this country because it's not really academic. It's changing now and it's getting better. So every year I'm able to be more respectful towards the students than I was the previous year. When I first got here, I had to be outright disrespectful towards their culture and their expectations and everything else. There was no nice or polite way to put it. Their culture, academically speaking, their culture was inferior. You've heard me talk about how they said that cheating was okay. Um, you can't respect something like that and you're trying to be an honest teacher. And mind you, y'all guys know about the Atlanta cheating scandal. When I went back to my hometown, I already had experience teaching in Atlanta, but not in the public schools. There were some people in my hometown that thought, you know what, we can set Black up. He worked in Atlanta, and so we can set him up. We can convince him to cheat a particular way, just like they did in Atlanta. We'll tell him that he'll lose his job if he doesn't. And then when he does it, we bust him. They tried that. I didn't cheat. I still didn't get the job. I didn't get the contract renewed for the next semester, the next school year, and didn't care because the kids were so bad. They were inferior in terms of their behavior. So getting back to this, there is something called the third world intellect. And it's a sad scenario, but that does exist. And so I'm letting people know about this because BMPTs, meaning that's Black Male Passport Travelers, have to know that some places are just not navigable. There are some cultural differences that are not navigable, and it is not your fault. It's not anything you're doing wrong. When you go into maybe second world nations and you're going to learn the language when you get there, you might can get away with that. When you go into third world nations, you don't have that option per se. There may be people that if your language is English, there may be people that have learned it. But if you get in a situation where they're not around, you can't navigate. Not physically, not culturally, nothing. You cannot be anything other than offensive. And it could be sanitary conditions that will make you sick, and they don't even understand it. And you can't explain it to them. Not everything is to be tried and experienced. Not everything. And you have to look into before you go visit a third world nation. One, don't go for long. Two, look and see as much as you can to prepare for it before you go. And if you're staying with friends, um, you want to stay with the ones that are really doing well. If you're staying with people or staying with friends and they're doing okay by their standards, they may be very hospitable. That oftentimes does happen. But in terms of what's actually going to keep you healthy, that might be something that just goes over their head. It could be like that. I mean, if you have to get bottled water and they're just not doing that because they're immune, they think it's just water. You're like, no, I know that water is going to make me sick. I need to get the bottled water. And they're looking at you like you're insane. If they understand what you're saying, it can be that way. That can happen. I'm in Saudi and I've gotten sick twice in Saudi to where I thought I was going to pass away, thought I would die. And the thing was this too. The first time that I had that, I couldn't even talk to ask someone to take me to the hospital. I had to type to my boss to tell him I can't speak and I can't move. And that's why I got that day off. But then later, when I was able to I was able to move around and speak again. My friend took me to this clinic, and I kid you not, this is in Saudi, which is for all practice. Well, I'd say Saudi's the second world nation. I would say that every single other Gulf country is more developed than Saudi, every last one, and Saudi makes the most money in oil revenue per day. Um, but um, it's the least developed, absolutely the least developed, hands down. I've never been to one of the other Gulf nations, and I've been to the Emirates and to Oman, and in every single case, they were more developed and cleaner than here, hands down, all the time. Um, and they've told me, people have said, if you go to Bahrain or Qatar or Kuwait, it's the same thing. They're just hands down better. Um, you come here and it's not completely undeveloped, but compared to what it's supposed to be, yes, it is intellectually and terms of infrastructure and everything else. Absolutely, it is. And a lot of it is just because the people here follow Bedouism more than they do in any of the other nations. They absolutely do. They don't respect the system until it starts to cost them money. It's taken years for the government to get people to drive like they have some sense, and they got to put speed bumps everywhere. And the messed up thing is, in order for them to put speed bumps up, they don't even mark all the speed bumps at times. So sometimes you're driving at a medium speed, but you just don't know there's a speed bump, and then you bust up your undercarriage. No marking on the speed bump ahead of time. Now they do it because people here, they always leave late, then they're in a hurry to get somewhere, and then they crash. Um, and when they kill themselves, uh, everybody else around them says, "Oh, go to the law." That's it. Or when they kill someone else, "Oh, go to the law." They may not like that they did it. It's not malicious, but once they do it, they don't stop and think, "What do I need to do differently so I don't kill someone again?" That doesn't go through their mind when you get outside of the bigger cities. It's just now starting to become a way of thought in these smaller towns. So the third world intellect is even here where I live, and it's now on the retreat. Alhamdulillah, it's on the retreat, but it does exist. And see, you and I, as Black men, period, before we become PTs, passport travelers, as Black men, we have learned we can't get ahead anywhere in life without thinking and being considerate and thinking ahead. Now, we all know some brothers that don't like to think ahead. A lot of them like to plot it. The only thinking ahead they do is when they start trying to scam. And what do they say? "Oh man, come on, hook me up, bro. We ain't gonna get caught." And that's the extent of thinking ahead they do. But by now, I mean, I'm almost 50. By now, where are these guys? The guys that we know that are like that, and we knew them from a young age. Where are they now? Where they at? Go ahead and put it. Somebody type where they are in the chat room. I'm doing my Dennis Sperling. I'm going to channel the spirit of Dennis Sperling for that. Yeah. Somebody put in the chat room where those guys are, the black men that we knew as youngsters that didn't like to think ahead. Where are they now? And I'm going to check this message from my son while y'all are typing in the chat room where those dudes are. So I got an update from him. Okay, all right. Abdul Malik Abu Thalatha, the father of three, cynical optimist, Paul Wilson, and Indigo Flow have answered correctly. Ding, 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 ding. Yes, they are in the grave or they are buried alive in the cell block. Cell block or cemetery. As Indigo Flow said, I like this one. In the yard or the graveyard, convict yard or the bone yard. But all of y'all have the same two answers or one. They don't get to live long and be free. And so they're not on their laptop or on their nice smartphone listening to this live if they were born around the time you are, and that's how they work, unless they shaped up before it got to them. That says something right there. Before you become PTs, you have had to learn that as black men, you don't get to not think ahead. You don't get to be inconsiderate. You got to always be calculated. You got to be smart. And when you travel, then you have to use another type of intelligence. You're in somebody else's yard. You're in their territory, their country, their rules. And you still have to try to maintain some integrity because people know if you're a snake. And that's what it takes. Well, you know what? You're going to find, you will go into some places and you will find that they don't think. They just don't think. Their minds go off. And you wonder how the hell they lived, how they've made it. Sometimes it's just they're immune um, by adaptation and inheritance. And other times it's because there's never been anything to gain. And the lack of anything to gain is not their fault. But that does exist. And so you got to prep yourself. Second world, there are remedies if you find that you're not compatible. Third world, depends. And see, I mention this because the second world is eventually going to become the first world, and it's going to develop the same issues and problems if we're not going to link up and become buddies with the men of these countries to stop certain disadvantages of the first world from proliferating in the second world. And when I say second world, I don't mean that as a pejorative either. I don't mean that as an insult, because second world can be quite developed. But if we carry some of the ADOS gang banging mindset with us that we have, not the pride, but some of the gang banging and the division that we have in our thinking, even if it's subconscious, it will block you from becoming buddies with men that are perfectly fit for friendship because they ain't us. And that means that the cooperation and the exchange of information needed to maintain their patriarchies, because that's what needs to be done, won't be exchanged. And so they won't know what's coming and they'll lose their patriarchy. And you won't know what to maintain and defend because you didn't come from one and you didn't learn from which patriarchy they're coming. That exchange of ideas will be stunted, and we're not looking for that. I'm glad that there are a lot of FBA brothers and African brothers from the continent that are in Thailand, as an example. I'm glad about that. But you got to have buddies at a time. Men. You got to. They need to know what we're fleeing because you already know that we're being followed there. Y'all saw that on Zoom to Thailand, and she was already living in Thailand. That lady he interviewed already living there. Probably doesn't treat her husband like that, but you know what? If she's there, what do you think she's saying to the Thai ladies? Y'all think she's over there sitting up and saying, listen, respect your man, love your man? No. Beyonce will tell you, all my single ladies, to whom does Beyonce go home? Peace, Shaka Nulu, what's going on? Does Beyonce go home and tell Jay-Z that he ain't worth nothing, no matter how many billions he makes? No. Her sister might do that, but Beyonce ain't doing that. Remember that elevator? While Solange was wailing on Jay-Z, Beyonce did not pull Solange off, but she didn't turn on Jay-Z either. What's happening? Break the cycle? So she's not necessarily combative in person if she doesn't have to be, I'm pretty sure, despite the fact that she comes from Louisiana and Texas. I know, right? The irony of it. And despite the fact that she looks like she does. I'm telling you now, growing up on the Gulf Coast as a Creole too, most women that look like Beyonce are going to have an attitude towards the men that like them. They may be polite and dismissive and evasive at best. Beyonce wasn't doing that with Jay-Z. And I'm saying that to tell you all that, well, getting back to the main point, when you're in these other countries, you know what you're leaving. And you also know that you're being followed by ladies that may even do like Beyonce does in private, but in public, they got to tell every woman because they don't realize how embarrassing it is for them in the culture in which they're sitting to get up and say these things. They're still thinking about the judgment of the hyenocracy and the sisterhood. That's what that lady spoke. Which influence is stronger with her? Who do you think she cares? I'm sorry, yeah. Who do you think she cares what she thinks? Or who do you think she cares what they think about what she thinks? Was she pandering to the Thai women population? No, she wasn't even addressing them. She was pandering to the hyenocracy. She knows that if she steps up and says anything about men's choices and what men have had to do and why not, she knows what happens. It's not the Thai women that come for her, it's the sisters that she's afraid of. And when I say sisters, I don't mean our sisters, they're sisters to each other. And we know that they're following us and we go to these places, then why do we have something? I wouldn't say we have anything against, but why are we not understanding the urgency of linking up with the men of these areas and trading information from them, trading information with them, giving some to them about what's coming and getting some from them about what we're maintaining? Because understand this, keep this in mind. They are not meeting, when you see them doing this, that means they have not met a brick wall of failure. That's why they're doing it actively in the continent. And that's why they go to Thailand and do it. I think they already have had some success in Kuala Lumpur, probably. There are more English speakers in KL than there are in Bangkok, believe it or not. English is quite widely spoken in Malaysia. And unlike in the Philippines, um, where it's really widely spoken, they don't seem to have met with much failure there. There are movies about the independent woman in Kuala Lumpur. I know, I saw one of them and it was not in English. It was in Bahasa Melayu. It was the subtitles that allowed me to know what was going on. Some single chick fell in love with a man that saved her life by pushing her out of the way of an oncoming car. She's trying to find that man, but that man was married and his wife wouldn't listen to him. And this was in one of their movies. My buddy has been through the ringer trying to find somebody to marry. It's a damn shame. So yeah, I say that for that reason. That's the reason why I say what I say about what we need to do is go ahead and be uh, start buddying up with these guys. I don't say that because I'm because of my phenotype. I think we need to just go out and make friends with everybody else but each other. I don't do that. I say that because we actually do have information to trade and valuable information. They can tell us what they're defending, what they're maintaining, or what to maintain. We know from what they need a defense, and they know what needs defending. That's what I'm getting at. That's the synergy that is needed. To answer your question, Abdul Malik, I did not know that they got deleted. How long ago was that they deleted the Make Hijra page? My son was trying to make Hijra, and he's gotten this valuable information for us. There's some more information I'm going to give you guys about what he and I both learned. Okay, got it. Yeah, that is fairly recently, and I wonder why the hell it was. I hope it wasn't them that deleted it. Um, and that's something else I need to tell you guys about on the real. Uh, y'all, if you're going to make content, honestly, if you're going to make content, you need to back it up. And in order to back up the content, you, I can tell you that one of the best platforms on which to do it is probably Odyssey. Um, Sometimes they might take something down on YouTube. That rarely happens in my case, but they might take something down on YouTube. But if they do, moving forward, I'm going to have it on Odyssey. I already have the Odyssey account. I've had it for over a year. And what I'll do is I'll go ahead and send to you all the link to that one so that in the future, you will be able to, um, yeah, in the future, you'll be able easily, without much of a problem, to go into it and specifically to where my account is. And then you can also see some of the other videos from there. So I will get this link up now. I know I put that, I know that I did that yesterday, but um, I'm going to put this link in here right now. Let's see. Rewards. I'm looking now. I'm navigating through that to get that link for you. It's going to come up. There it is. And now it's in the chat. So you guys will have an easier time going to that whenever you want. So getting back to what it is that we have to do with our brethren, with um, our colleagues in these other countries, we have to go ahead and inform them, as I said before. And you may be wondering what it's got to be about. And the conversation is really just going to be about, look, you listen to how their patriarchy works, and then you tell them what the Westernicians are going to do to undermine it. And one of the other reasons I say this is because there are locals in these areas that know that you are not like the hyenas that raised us and are following us over there now. And then there are others that know that there are others that know. I'm sorry, which one did I say first just now? My bad. Anyway, there are those who know that we're not them, even though we came from their wombs, and there are others that don't know that we're not them. They think we're the same. And that does make a difference. Sometimes you go to these areas and you're gonna be the first bruh they meet. And we know how to build rapport with people. We know how to get along with folks. Those of us that are actually BMPTs are better at getting along with each other than your average stereotype. We're good with that. We're glad to see each other. And I want us to have some of that merchandise, to which I put the link up in my descriptions of these videos, including this one. And get y'all some sweatshirts or some long sleeve shirts or short sleeve t-shirts. I want us to be recognizable to each other. But I also want us to have an easier time when you I want you to have, I want the next wave coming through to have an easier time. I want us to pave the way for the ones that are going to come through that are younger. That's what I'm looking at. And this right there is everything. Now, what David Class said was correct too. Snitching. We can't afford to just, and you could be silent. And to be honest with you, this goes even beyond the black women and the black British women. This is a problem with the Westerners in general. In general, it's just that sadly, the most vocal ones, they're going to oftentimes be the sisters and the others that want to be adjacent to them. But this is true. We have to start looking at these other languages. And in all honesty, this will make things easier. My son started to learn the language where he went to visit. He tried to learn more, but he's going to have to recover. So the next thing I was going to ask you all about, and even tell you all about, was the international effects of Cat Williams' interview. Walaikum salam, Bilal. Cat Williams' interview, I did not realize was actually being watched over here by Black Saudis, and I found out some more information that I was unaware of. Black Saudis have actually been paying attention to the comedians coming out of Black America. But they've heard rumors about Illuminati and different conspiracy theories too. I have been actually shocked over the last year by the information that I have learned. And I want to give a shout out to B Deep and to Mr. Hassan, with my buddies in Riyadh, for a lot of the info I learned from them. And then I got in touch with some of my former students from Riyadh and asked them what's going on. I sent a link to another video, and one of my former students got back to me and said, look, she said, Cat Williams actually shed a lot of light on me. I wanted to live in the States when I was younger, seeing it on TV. But after hearing you and then hearing his interview, I'm not so sure I'd want to live. And I told her that, I said to her, look, you have to understand that visiting the States is one thing. She's a Black Saudi. She has a white side to her family and a Black side. And her English is excellent. There's pretty much nothing you can say to her in English that she would not understand. I nicknamed her Miss Harvey in the beginning because she said to me once, when I was joking with another teacher, she said, instructor mine, you sound like Steve Harvey. I really watch him closely. I follow him closely. So I nicknamed her Miss Harvey. Then later I said, you know what? I need a better nickname for you, because that's not fair to you. Well, she told me yesterday that she saw the interview and that actually it was making its rounds. Another student told me that Jamaican media and Jamaican English are becoming more popular in the kingdom. He meant amongst Black Saudis. Now, they do sort of see Jamaicans as our cousins, which is right. They are. We were grabbed from the same place. They actually see Black Americans and Jamaicans as their own cousins because many of them come from Western and Central African origin, both kidnapped and free, both. You can ask people here about, especially if their last name is Al Fulata or Al Hausawi. Those are last names. That means Hausa and Fulani. That's what that means. Um, Now, Bilal, you might have to tell me what this means, bro, because I'm behind, man. I'm sorry about that. I'm really behind. Um, but so in any case, you can ask them, look, do you remember hearing about a time back home in Hausa land or in the Futa Jalon when people were just disappearing? Do you remember hearing that from elders? Did you all know that these disappearances actually was one of the push factors that got many of them in the 17 and 1800s to migrate east, not in chains, but free. And they went and settled in Medina and Mecca in the Hijaz area in Jeddah. Oh, okay, got it, Bilal. Got it. All right. Thank you. Okay. So you can ask them of them because that's what I asked. I would say, well, look, do you remember hearing from grandparents and great grandparents when a bunch of people back home were just disappearing? And they've all nodded their heads and said, yes, they've heard. And I had to say to him, that's me. That's us. We were the ones that disappeared. They drug us to the coast and then sold us to Europeans who then drug us across the ocean in boats. And a lot of us didn't even survive. They've wondered, actually, quite a few of them have wondered how we're related, but they were never told these details. But they actually do, believe it or not. We like to sit up and say, man, the Africans don't like us. No, actually, Africans don't have a dislike for us. They disagree with us like we disagree with each other, but without hatred. But we like to lose that nuance. And most Nigerians in the north don't even know what Akata means. That's the funny thing. Yeah, it's from one of the Nigerian languages, specifically Yoruba. Most Yorubas don't know what it means because they're not the ones that use that word. It's from their language. That's true. But they're not the ones walking around calling us Akata. So we're not being targeted by Black folks that are not American when they come from the continent. We're actually being looked to as an example in certain ways. And that's also true for many of the Black Khaliji Arabs. They fight back. They come across racism, usually in personal matters, not so much in government, and they fight back if they're sure that that's what the hell it is. They have the same dichotomy we do. There are those of them that fight it. There are those of them that evade it, and then there are those of them that try to appease it by skin bleaching and straightening their hair and talking extra Bedouin. Oh yeah, they're out there too. And I've had to, when I realized this, I had to pull some of them off to the side and say, listen, you and I know what's going on here. You don't get to act like these little sand crackers and get away with it. So cut that mess out. You were screwing up in your studies and you think that you're going to blend in with them. No, they're going to call you and me the same names they always do, no matter what. So go ahead and study and get ahead of them in life, bro, and get to it now. Stop making excuses when I tell you to read something out loud in front of the class. And if I ask to speak to your parents, don't tell me dad's dead and you can't talk to my mom because she's a lady. Don't do that. Because either I'm going to talk to an older brother and uncle, or when I see you with your mom, I'll approach and speak to her, not to bother her, but to inform her about what you're not doing. You are not one of these Bedouin sandcrackers. They'll cut each other a break in the job market, and they're having a hard time doing that. They're complaining about prices going up and wages not, or going down. They're complaining about this. You think they're going to turn around and cut you or me a break? No, bro. You got to be twice as fluent as them, twice as bilingual to get the same effect. Now get to it. I've had to have these talks with them. But that's the dichotomy that you see, or more like a trichotomy: fight back, evade, or appease. We have the same thing in Black America. This right here. This is something that a lot of them don't get a clear picture of. Some think that we were on luxury cruise ships on the way to the New World. And that's North Africa, I mean, because they do know about the trade a little bit more, but they don't care as much. But yeah, there's a lot we can learn just from our relatives. And see, there. So I'm saying that to say that they're circulating. They're actually more aware of us than we are of them. But unfortunately, there is also some of the gang culture that they're beginning to emulate, and it ain't just the Black Saudis doing. However, they're seen as being at the forefront of even that. The country is a safe country. It really is. But I have seen photos of some of the locals, Black and non-Black and questionable, posing with AK-47s. Now, people own weapons in their homes for protection because uh, one of the reasons you don't have a high burglary rate here is not only how the law treats it, but also the fact that no house is just unarmed. And people aren't walking around with guns, but gun ownership here is legal for citizens. Kind of like the states in that regard, but with a better result. Here, you expect the family to have someone in the family to have some weapon because there are many people living in the family home. Someone's got a license and got a weapon, and someone's going to protect the property and the people that they're in. So home invasions are generally very rare. However, some of them are taking these family weapons that may be licensed legally, but they're posing with them and sharing the photos. And let's be honest, back in Black America, who was leading the change away from this? Because this is becoming less and less popular for us to do, isn't it? Am I right about that? Back in the States, isn't this fitting the gang stereotype becoming less and less popular? You tell me in the chat if I'm right or wrong. I'm getting the impression from the Black manosphere that it's becoming less and less popular and more challenged, and that Black men are beginning to think more and more analytically and critically about meeting stereotypes and deciding, you know what, I don't have to do that. Am I wrong? You tell me if my impression's wrong, guys. Let me know. I'll give you time to put that in the chat. Is it becoming popular now? Okay, I've got one answer. Now, I don't want him to be the only one to answer, but I got one. This is good. I'll give y'all some time to type the rest of your answers in. If you're typing too quickly, then, I mean, let's be honest, you're typing too quickly, you already know what's going to happen. You're going to misspell. I may understand, I may not. I probably won't roast anybody for that today, though. I think I'll be nice. While y'all are typing that, I'm going to look and see if anybody joined the Odyssey yet. Looks like nobody did. Nope, no one did yet. What's going on? Okay, all right. Okay, so I see various answers. Good feedback. Thank you all for giving me that. Uh, David Class says that there's a division. Abdul Malik says that there is a trend where they're beginning to see that that's a dumb thing to do. Um, Bilal gave some interesting information that middle class white guys in the UK are beginning to take it on. Now, what I would say is that amongst Black males, let's take the UK as a part of this. Amongst Black males in the UK and North America, Is it becoming less fashionable, or is it the same as before? Would you all say that it's the same or that it's less fashionable to pose with guns and maybe flashing a lot of money in your photographs? And by the way, I'm not shocked and I'm not hurt that I'm not making 100 today on the Cash App. I'm just shocked that I don't even see uh, a five. I'm wondering what's going on with that. If it's just because of the time of year and you're tapped out, that's fine. But I'm hoping nobody's upset. Okay, Bilal says less fashionable. David Class says less fashionable. And Abdul Malik already said um, that it was that they're beginning to see how stupid it was. Um, so that means less fashionable. Now, here's the thing. I'm saying this to say that while we're looking at this and saying, okay, this is dumb, shuck this fit, you're starting to see more young guys, especially in Riyadh, maybe Jeddah too, but in Riyadh, calling themselves parts of gangs and um, oh, God have mercy. Okay, that that does say something. This is I mention that because while we're looking at this and saying this is stupid, it's on the increase over here. This is one of the reasons why we're going to need to go ahead and be less divisive in our thinking and get around to start saying to some of our brethren and even some of our cousins that are not black in these other areas what it's really like. See, a lot of them know that the stereotypes on TV are false, but they don't really know what else. They don't know what is true and they don't know how to relate. I'm seeing this happen even between non black Saudis and black Saudis at times. Sometimes, if I'm talking to a black Saudi and we're chopping it up, if they're bilingual, they know I'm black as soon as they hear me talk. If we're chopping it up and a white, or no, I shouldn't even say white, but a non black Saudi walks up, they might even so much as greet the black Saudi with an exaggerated walk and a long handshake. It's a stereotype. It's corny as hell. They really don't know. I've seen that myself. Not all the time, but I've seen it. Oh no, Abdul Malik. The sagging, um, they know about it, but that's just one thing they weren't about to do. And that's largely because they weren't really wearing trousers out like in public like that for a long time. More and more the men are recently beginning to wear more trousers. Um, previously it was a thobe. How do you sag in a thobe? But now they're wearing more trousers. But the trousers, they're not sagging them, but they're a bit bigger and baggier, just a bit. Shirts too, a little baggier. They're going a bit now more for the 90s look. And it's funny because my wife made jokes about me wearing clothes that was somewhat baggy. Because at that time, when guys did wear trousers and shirts, they wore them tight. But then when they started to try to go more for the West Coast look. Uh, then she tried to pick out a few days ago when I first got here. She tried to pick out a baggier shirt, and I was like, "What's going on with that? What's happening with that?" From the bottom of my black heart and from the depths of my black mind, shouts out to Indigo Flow. I mean, Blendigo Flow coming through on the Cash App. I mean that. Thank you so much. And um, I'm trying to get my sound effects together. I'm on a headset, so if I played it on the computer, you wouldn't hear it. But um, as soon as I can get to the sound effects, yep, y'all are probably about to hear it Mm, these things are out of order. There you go. Yeah, I appreciate that. Oh, now it's going to play all the sound effects at one time. Oh, Brandon, thank you, sir. Yes, Brandon D from the bottom of my black heart and from the depths of my black mind. And my son and my employees also thank you guys. Um, so I wanted to tell y'all that there is some imitation. And the thing is that these guys are not having shootouts in the street, especially with the cops. The system here is strong. But the ideas that they have of just wilding out to a certain extent got to be done away with. It's not okay, y'all. And granted, we weren't acting a fool on TV thinking that other black folks in other countries are going to see this. We weren't. But the thing is that now that we know that our image is being exported, we can determine what it's going to be that gets exported because it is copied. And when some of them get to know us personally, and they get to meet the resistant side of us, the side of us that resists oppression, then they take that too, and they get ideas on how to resist it. That's the other thing. I mean, you now have some black Saudis, I know, because B Deep has talked about that. You got some black Saudis now that are beginning to tell others, do not straighten your hair, especially the males. Ain't no skin bleach around here. You also have some that are beginning to tell the black Saudi women, if you're not going to flirt, don't say anything if I wind up with another woman that ain't black because she flirted. If she acts like she's interested and you don't get to say anything because she was talking, she was a little nice, and you know what? I might go and meet her dad soon. You know, sometimes people here do flirt. There's a limit, but sometimes they do. But that's beginning to happen too. Does that sound familiar at all? By the way, did y'all know that in actuality, um, there is a bit of a talk now amongst more so the non-black Saudis about should black Saudis marry them or should they marry black Saudis? It's not all the time, but there is that talk. And you know, the elders amongst the non-black Saudis will say to the youngest, why would you damage the race? They say that. Just like Latin Americans from the Caribbean islands will say, mejora la raza, improve the race. These folks here will say, la tuhabr, or what is it? Yeah, no, it's la tuharrik al irq. Don't damage the race. And they'll say this with no hatred in their heart. It's just no, they don't think that bad things should happen to us. They're just looking at us like, why would anybody marry y'all unless they are you? But you know what the women here like that are black and not well, you know what the non-black women here like? They like that black bodyguard look. That's what they're going for. Sometimes I don't even like to go out in public. Um, it depends on where I am. There's some places in Riyadh I don't go by myself. I either go with B Deep or Mr. Hausawi, or if my wife visits, I go with her. Because if I'm with either B Deep or Mr. Hausawi, then I'm not getting the attention they will. MashaAllah. But and if I go with my wife, well, then they know not to stare too much. Anyway. But there are times where, and I'm not even that recognizable. I'm just bald headed, and I started doing a little exercise after work. That's it. So imagine if I was recognizable as one of us, and I've been in the gym for 5 years solid. Imagine that. I've been in a car um, with a brother from here, and a non-black lady pulls up on the side in traffic, rolls the window down, and says to him, "Are my lips beautiful?" She had an operation done. Just asking him out the blue that something like that. I've been here like that. I've seen with my own eyes where they do pay attention. You an in shape brother. I've seen that with my own eyes. And a non-black man told me, yeah, women like brothers that have been in shape. They like brothers that look like bodyguards. Does this sound familiar? I'm telling you all this because of how familiar it sounds. There are things that we can learn from each other, and we need to focus on learning these things. Um, I would say good luck, David class. You have to be Muslim to do it though. And that's even legal too. Legally, you have to be Muslim and you have to have a certain salary. Uh, Now, they don't really trip if a black Saudi marries a black foreigner. They don't trip too much about that. They kind of get it. Um, anyway, yes, LOM, you would. Yeah, you would. Sometimes the non-black woman will be out here flirting with you. Now, to answer this question, Abdul Malik, I heard where he said something about them not letting black people be black. I remember him talking about it. I don't remember his exact words, but yeah, I remember what he was talking about. And truth be told, he didn't understand. And that's the thing. That means he really didn't study. That means there's something not academic about him. He didn't really understand what the message is. Because there's nothing in the message that says you can't belong to the people to whom you belong. There's nothing in the message that says that being black and culturally distinct from non-black people is a problem, because they talk about the Arabs. Nobody says anything about the Arabs naming themselves after tribes. There was this tribe and that tribe, and they wrote it into history, and nobody said a mother cuss word thing about them being different tribes, even when they wiped each other out because of it. No one said anything. All of a sudden, we come around the corner, we black, and they want us to forget that we black. Until it's time to marry, then they want us to remember that we're black. They want us to forget and remember based on whatever's the most convenient for them, to stay as white as possible and be able to blend in with whiteness. And in that regard, Umar was right about the community per se, but to leave the faith alone, to leave the faith alone, no, he wasn't right about that. If it's the truth, and he still tries to say it's the truth, if it's the truth, then it's the truth. That means that if there's something in it that's false, then that is something people put into it. So this anti-black sentiment that many non-black Muslims have, whether it's outright hatred or whether it's just forgetting that we're equal, whichever one it is, whether it's violent, malicious, or just benign, neglectful, and ignorant, whichever one, obviously that didn't come from God. And the thing is, if he had actually thought about this, he would have come to the same conclusion as Bilal from the Features. Bilal from the Features has talked about this. Why is there an anti-black sentiment around the planet? Well, let's see here. If babies aren't born that way, but a lot of adults around the planet, even before electronic media, developed anti-black ideology of some sort by the time they were adults, who could do this across cultural boundaries and across linguistic barriers at that time? White supremacy and anti-blackness prove that there is a devil, that there is a Satan. That's proof right there. Now, if there's a Satan, we already know. Who told us that there is a devil before, and this devil's a clear enemy to us? That would be the Lord. So then you start looking at books that the Lord is at least thought to have revealed, and you make a comparison and contrast, and then the Quran wins out. If he had really thought about it, he would have done it for a full circle and wound up back where he was raised. He didn't. He didn't do that. Is he an academic? Yes, but he missed this part. And the thing is that, people don't listen to the devil because they want to do, or they want to be devils, or they want to follow him consciously. People listen to the devil because they don't think it's the devil talking. But all of the Features has covered this, and that's why I put up links in my community tab about that. So getting back to Kath Williamson, that interview that broke the internet, I wanted to say that this is something that is actually not just going on in the country. Where it's not just the States or Canada. It's not only there. People are able to watch this here And if they can understand what's going on, and there are a lot of bilingual people here. I just got through teaching a good class of 26 bilingual students. Now, when it comes to testing English and writing correctly, that's where the struggle was. But them being bilingual and understanding, no, most of them could understand everything. And so I know that many people, especially in these bigger cities, Dammam in the east, Riyadh, kind of east, Taif, Jeddah, Mecca, Medina, Yanbu, Jubail. These are cities where you've got a lot of bilingual people, highly educated. A lot of the eastern province actually, um, it has a strong educational system, and therefore it reflects in their language skills. Well, they can watch this and they can get a deeper insight into things they may have heard a little bit about. They can do that. They can watch Cat Williams. A lot of them know who he is, and the man has a very sharp memory. I mean, comedians have to have a certain amount of intelligence to be comedians, but um, yeah, he has a real sharp memory. He was able to sit up and give dates and names and figures without thinking about it too much. And so when he was given this information, people here are learning about how Hollywood functions. I don't have to sit up and tell all my students all the time, look, stop imitating the action movies that you see. I don't have to say that. When I got here 9 years ago, I had to tell my students, stop this stuff. You're going to get yourself killed trying to drift because you saw it on the Fast and Furious movies. I had to tell them that. I had to say this to them back then. They didn't know that Paul Walker passed away. They were not aware of it. Now, what you said, Abdul Malik, that was very correct. 51%, and they ain't trying. And quiet as it's kept, a lot of people thought, Sudanese want to be Arabs. No, they speak Arabic and they ain't trying to be Arabs. Sudanese, I found them to be quite proud. Now, granted, I'm not meeting them in Sudan, I'm meeting them here. Now, I don't know if they get an inward wake-up call when they come, but they ain't scared of Saudis for the most part. So I don't think that's what it is. I think they have a bit more awareness and consciousness already, especially if they've done any reading. Maybe it's because the ones I meet here usually have some kind of education. That might have something to do with it, but they do. We can talk about when I meet a Sudanese here, as long as we can either speak Arabic slowly enough or they're bilingual, um, then we can chop it up about Black history. And we do. There are times that happens. We chopping it up about Black history, talking about, as a matter of fact, Sudanese actually have a relationship with Northern Nigerians, and people don't realize that. You have a lot of Hausa in Sudan as well, and Fulata living in Sudan. And they went there from Chad and Nigeria. You have a lot of Bornui people from the Bornu area of Nigeria, not far from Lake Chad, and a lot of them moved east. So they're actually more related than what many of us would think. I've watched Nigerians and Sudanese get along when the Nigerians' Arabic is terrible and the Sudanese doesn't speak English. I've watched that. It's the Fulani actually. LOM, yeah, it's the Fulani that are. They're majorly they were cattle keepers. The ones that still live the Fulani way, yeah, they are. The Hausa were more sedentary, and now they've begun to intermarry a lot. Hausa and Fulani are all related to each other, both in Saudi and in Sudan and in Nigeria and in Chad. A lot of them are related to each other. So now, if you meet somebody that's one, they still have both bloodlines in them. And a lot of them are sedentary. Most of the ones we meet are sedentary. But if you meet a Fulani that's still living the nomadic lifestyle, they largely are cattle keepers. That's true. Cattle herders. Um, so um, It's not like with, Omar is not really Omar Ungawa Johnson. I'm talking about Dr. Omar Ungawa Johnson. It's not really he's not really as aware of what's going on internationally as what he may make it sound like. There are things that you can learn from him, like a vetting process that the U.S. embassies and consulates do apply to the applicants for U.S. visas. You come in from the continent, even North Africa, and they give you an orientation and they tell people. My wife said this. My wife told this to her friend from Philadelphia. She said, "We don't hate African Americans, but if we do get a visa to go to the States, they give an orientation and they tell us in the embassies and consulates to avoid y'all." She said that. And Omar was right about that. He told the population about this. Years ago, he said that. He said there's a reason why. Yeah, Omar Ungawa Johnson, 10 years ago or more, said that there's a reason why many black folks who come from outside the US have the same sentiments, but they can't voice them publicly. He actually gave him a pass. Can y'all imagine? And you know what? He didn't make that pass up. It's true. He was telling the truth about that. Um, they will do that. I lived with Arabs that had to get student visas to go to the United States, and they told me something similar. So, in any case, what I was getting at before that was that um, we get to decide what our image is going to be. We're now in a position that we BMPTs are the ones that are in the best position because people are willing to take us on an individual basis and meet us. And there actually are people that are looking for ways, they want to meet us when they can. If we get a chance to, they'll be glad to. And if they hear that in my case, when I speak, they say you sound like a rapper, and they might start asking me questions about hip hop. I've had students think that I personally knew Tupac before he died. Some students thought that at one point, but it goes beyond that. And if you let them get to know you beyond that, they're willing to, and you get to determine what the image is going to be. See, we already have we have more of an effect abroad than what we think we do. And that's not something we requested. We weren't trying to do that. Let's be honest. When we're making movies, and Cat Williams reminded me of this. When our actors and comedians were making these movies, were they making them for a U.S. audience or an international audience? Without trying to, we have an effect abroad. Speaking of that, what's going on, Igor? ¿Cómo está, hermano? Um, and thank you for joining. So, you know what, I'm sorry, LOM, line of MGTOW, I see what you put down here. That actually, a lot of the Fulani themselves say that they came from the East. Now, they now live in the East and the West, and even the Central. You have Fulani living in Cameroon, but they do say that they initially came in and that they crossed the Red Sea to get into what's now Africa. A lot of them say that. Um, this is something that they will tell you if you ask them. It's in their oral history. Now, I think that's true for the Hausa as well, because as I've picked up a few words of Hausa, I've learned that some of the pronouns for Hausa are actually very similar to the pronouns in Arabic. So that means that Hausa was either related to Hebrew or to Arabic. If it's related to one, it's related to the other. Tells me that it tells me it's a Semitic language. That's what that tells me based on these pronouns. So in any case, as I was getting at, uh, we are influencing without meaning to. I'm not saying this to brag. I'm saying this to make us aware of the kind of power that we have. And since we got this power, we BMPTs are the ones that are using this power correctly. This is what a pro-black space is right here. It's the black manosphere. It's the ones that are talking about traveling. It is the ones that are saying, listen, go over here to get these skills to code, get these skills for X, Y, and Z. I'll tell you guys straight up, the skills that I can sit up and tell you how to get are going to be the skills to teach English. English is right now, I mean, at this point, English is the world's language. The US Coast Guard labels its ships in English. The Chinese Coast Guard labels its ships in Mandarin and English, just as an example. You go into airports around the world and the signs are going to be in a local language and maybe two international languages, and one of them will be English. You got airports in Africa now where they got the signs in Mandarin. The Addis Ababa airport is called Bole Airport. That Bole Airport has signs in Amharic and Mandarin and English. I didn't photograph it when I had to go through there, but yeah, it's got that. So what I wanted to say to y'all is that we're in a position to where, let's say you're not technically savvy, you can do that. But the point is that the black manosphere is telling us about, telling each other about these skills and everything else, because this is the pro-black space. The Muslims that are waking up and deciding to fight back against the biases of those that ain't black, because that's not a part of Islam. It's actually against it. They're beginning to fight back and say, look, you know what? You don't get to tell us that that's black nationalism and that's wrong. No, fuck the shuck up, because you cared about Kashmir, you care about Palestine. And by the way, the Palestinians sympathize with us, but you don't, and you sympathize with the Palestinians. So what does that tell you? You know, that's the pro-black space right there. And then the black manosphere at large is a pro-black space. This is where the authenticity is. So I'm coming in to let you all know today that since the diaspora and black folks, mostly black Brits, Americans, and Jamaicans, are able to influence black folks elsewhere without even trying to, but simply because the media accidentally allows that, and other black folks are willing to learn from us, that we actually have a power, and we might as well go ahead and start thinking about what we're going to do with that power. What will we do with this power? Well, obviously, we're going to influence others for the better. I know this being a teacher. I'm going to have an influence. My bad habits and my good habits are going to be observed. And I've seen that with both things. My students have learned to take more care, to fix grammar. My students have learned, and they said this, they said, well, you know, instructor black or instructor mine, previously I thought, well, I understand what they're saying and they understand me, and I thought that was good enough. But not anymore. I'm going to go ahead and actually fix and improve the English so that I can write in it for my jobs, for the jobs I want. But the bad habit, sometimes I would swear in Jamaican English. Oh, yeah. And guess what? Now you got these Saudi youth that are circulating a video of Jamaicans swearing in patois. That's my fault. My bad habit and my good habit alike have had effects, and I can see these things. And so I realized, well, you know what? You collectively are far more influential around the world than I'm ever going to be because of the numbers, right? Exactly, Bilal. Yes, exactly. That too. Well, you got this video where they're swearing in Jamaican and they're circulating this around Saudi, and this was an accident of mine. I didn't show the video. I found it from them, but because they heard me swearing one time when I was surprised, I think I must have hurt myself or something. And now my student Hood Hassan, my former student now, he finished the semester, he says this frequently. Other students are circulating these videos where Yard Mandem swear, cuss bad word. And then my former students in Riyadh were circulating it. So now I got people saying to me, well, look, I want to speak Jamaican English. And I'm looking up saying to them, look, man, I'm not Jamaican. I'm related to them. Yeah. We were taken from the same place, but I'm not Jamaican. And I'm not talking about black Saudis either. They don't need me to learn this. Yeah, you see, some of them think I actually can speak patois fluently. No, and I have to tell them, no, I can understand a good bit of it if it's not too fast, but uh, I'm not Jamaican. I'm Creole. And so imagine if you have this influence, well, what are we going to do with it? We can actually take that influence and influence the men of other places to protect the patriarchy they have. We're not going to influence them to abuse the women. Oh, I got it, Indigo. Yeah, I caught that. I caught that message. Yeah. Um, so to take this, we can let others know, look, this is what's going on. This is what we're leaving behind when we leave the States. And they'll look and say, oh, we get it now. Okay, yeah, you know what? We're going to start uh, uh, watching more closely our family situations. Believe that. If we put that message out, it's going to get out. LOM, I might be. No, if you might be, then you're Creole. Most Creoles actually LOM. People don't know they're Creole, to be honest. And a lot of times, the people that you think are Creole, we're not actually Creole. That's a sad reality, but that has happened before. Um, most Creoles actually don't look the stereotype, and they don't tell you the Creole because they don't expect anybody to believe. Um, I learned that at my family reunion, first one that we had. That's when I found out I was Creole. Um, and but a lot of the family, though the family is Creole, a lot of them did not. Yeah, yeah, it's true. Mr. T is Creole. LAR movement is Creole. He said it he said it himself. LAR movement is Creole. He's from New Orleans, living in Houston. He's Creole. People don't know that he is. So in any case, yeah, what I was getting at is that when it comes to this influence, I remember last spring when I was waiting on my passport to get in. I had to renew it. And I said something about waiting on the passport and how I said, my son, Simba, got his passport. And if you're listening, Simba, salam alaikum. Uh, and we'll talk more about what we'll talk more about what you dealt with, um, what you told me recently. I won't repeat it here, but talk more about that. So I was telling my class, my students, yeah, I'm waiting on the passport, and it's taking a while, and um, my son had to wait. I think he may have had to wait 8 weeks, and I said there's this backlog. A lot of people are asking for passports now. U.S. citizens are asking for passports, so they weren't ready for that. And it was one of my students, a brother from Jazan, from the south of this country, a brother who raps, by the way. I remember telling y'all that I told my students they had to recite some poetry. Rap was fine too. A brother, the first one to do that assignment. And he came with a Kangol fishing hat and some shades to class to do it. It's funny. Dude loves rap. And it's a good way to teach English, believe it or not. Well, I should say poetry in general is a good way to teach English, actually, whether it's rap or not. So he raised his hand. He said, instructor mine. I said, yeah, what's that? And he said, ain't they leaving black women? Aren't they getting the passports to get away from the black American women? It's a black Saudi talking to a black American Creole man. And I had to actually say to him, because he was just asking, he wasn't saying it to be mean, he was just asking. But I had to say to him, the truth is, it's actually that they're leaving to get away from Western women, not just black women. And he said, well, what is the difference? Why do we hear about them running from black women? And I had to tell them the difference is this: white guys been doing this in small numbers to get away from their women. They just didn't talk much about it. But sisters will talk about this. They will brag about how difficult they are to the men. They love it. Like, if a black woman does have a husband and she treats him well, she ain't gonna tell her friends that. She wouldn't do that because they'll make fun of her. So she's got to be loud and proud with her bad attitude. So bruhs got sick and tired of that and said, "Oh hell no." So in reality, truth be told, we started to discuss this. But no, the white dudes been leaving their women behind, and smaller numbers, but they've been doing it in bigger numbers than us. It's just that one is talked about, the other one is not, and that's what you're hearing about. That's real. This is um, black Saudis keeping a pulse on black American affairs, and even some non-black Saudis. The darkest students in my class that I just got through teaching are a set of twins, a pair of twins. So I don't know which one of them said it, but when I mentioned something about in the class, I mentioned something about how Hood Hassan actually brought that up. Hood Hassan started the conversation, said something about Amber Turd. So he'd heard the headlines in English, right? I mean, think about it. Can you get the joke Amber Turd if you don't speak English? And your English isn't good? Oh, that means he knows what turd is. He knows slang, right? I told y'all he's Hood Hassan for a reason. He brought this up. And I said, man, that actually accelerated something. Yeah, that accelerated something. You see, in the UK, he lost his case, but in the US, he won because he had the evidence. And she had an audio. He recorded her saying that she could sit up and say what she wanted, and they will believe her because she's a woman, and she was going to do that. She was going to say whatever she wanted because she's a woman, and they will believe it. That's real. And I told them, did y'all know she cheated on him with Elon Musk? Some of them said, whoa, it was that bad? Students here that are bilingual actually know how bad the West is where you're coming from and what you're leaving. But one of the twins said, oh yeah, passport bros. Now this twin is, even though they're the darkest in my class, they don't count themselves as black. Their hair's straight, their family name is Harvey from Medina. They don't count themselves as black. They even said Harveys do not allow their women to marry black men. I know that's a mother cuss word lie, by the way. It goes back and forth, but traditionally they did not. That's true. It's changed. I didn't have the heart to tell them that because they didn't grow up in Medina where their family's from. So I said, I'm not even going to let them know. But in any case, one of them said passport bros. Now he doesn't know passport bros is black and the passport Joes is white. He doesn't know about that. But he had to have heard about it if he looked at it long enough. This is how the information is going around and circulating. So now that we know this, now that we know that we're center stage in the Anglophone diaspora, so to speak, now that we're aware of this, how do we wield it? This is when we start talking to each other like we should. That's true. But we also start to address these men more. And if you can't get out the West, then you can't. But start addressing the men that are in the East, and you let them know, look, ain't nobody telling you to abuse the women. You're going to look out for them because you love them. If your sister tries to go out the house in a conservative country and she tries to go out unconservatively dressed, and you grab her and you swat her on the butt once and send her and say, go put some clothes on before you go outside, are you doing it because you hate her or because you love her? That's the question. Are you doing it because you hate her or because you love her? We need to start talking to these brothers and saying, look, we already know. You ain't got to tell us black men that you ain't out here trying to abuse your women, but you're not going to let them abuse you and mess up the family structure either. check their social media. And if you're the one taking care of mom because dad is old, or dad passed away, or dad ain't there no more, if you're taking care of mom and she's under your house and your rules, you check her social media. That's what we need to start telling them. Because see, it's already known that black men are generally speaking more romantic. Oh yeah, that's a stereotype, not just about black Americans. Yeah, black Saudis too had that stereotype. A positive stereotype about black Saudi men is that in a marriage, they're actually more romantic. Can y'all imagine? So we're in a position, even when we're not from the West, we're in a position to start telling these other men, protect that patriarchy, reward, and take very good care, excellent care of the women in your family to look out for you and look out for the family. But check their social media. Don't just look only at how they behave in the house, but also listen to who they listen to. Because if she's listening to Shira 7, but she's treating you well, your daughter, your sister, your wife, or even your mom, but she's listening to Shira 7, one day she's going to talk like Shira 7, and she's going to tell some other young woman in another family to act like Shira 7. And that woman's going to mess her family up. I'm going to tell you now, when all them old women, the old men expect to die. Old men don't expect to be too well taken care of if they're by themselves, and a lot of men are by themselves. We expect to pass away, and that's it. And if we ain't got nobody, or we had to live far away from our relatives to earn money for them, then we expect we're gonna pass away, and if someone comes to check on us, they'll find out that we're dead, and hopefully it won't be too bad or too dirty of a scene to clean up. We'll know. We expect that. Ladies don't expect that. And when a lot of them now talking all that smack, driving men away, are older and ain't no kids, and they wouldn't let no man be a husband to them. And either they never had kids or the kids moved away because they wanted to get away from the dysfunction, then they're going to be by themselves and they're going to look to have someone take care of them. Armando, I know I'm mispronouncing the name. I'm doing it to protect your privacy. Armando came through on the Cash App. Thank you again from the bottom of my black heart and from the depths of my black mind. I mean that. I really do appreciate that. Thank you so much. Uh, so yeah, anybody that does send on Cash App, believe me, I appreciate that, and that's going to that is going first place it'll go to is to pay salaries, and and then if that's taken care of, then it's going to go to this message, or it will go right now. I might put some to help my son because he's helping the manosphere with the information that he's been mining and digging for. Um, because he decided to take this opportunity to see a third world nation up close and personal to benefit you all. Um, so thanks a million. I appreciate that. But if any of you do come through on the Cash App, I'm going to say your name in such a way that you will know that I'm thanking you, but I'm not going to give up your privacy to anybody else. Um, no, Simba hasn't studied the martial art yet. Um, he did practice boxing. He trained boxing about age 12, I'd say. He boxed not from a professional boxer, but he learned the basics of self defense. Um, he had made me see stars at age 12. So so in any case, I was going to tell you all that we have to let these men know that we see the threat and they know what needs to be defended. They know the fort and we know the threat. And then we need to trade this information. And you don't even have to be a black Westerner to do it. You need to be good in English? Well, either that or you have to have a good translator. But we can get the message out. If you are black and you live anywhere where the patriarch is under attack, where the family structure is under attack, where marriage is being made difficult unduly, if you live in any of these areas and you can articulate in your own language, then there is Google Translate for that. We can share different skills with each other. Truth be told, there are trades that are also valuable in other places. People are not always aware of that. Elevator maintenance. Oh, yeah, elevator maintenance is a big thing in some of the Gulf countries of the Middle East. Like, for instance, in, oh God, in the UAE, definitely, because they got skyscrapers, not just in Dubai, but also in Abu Dhabi, in Bahrain, and Qatar as well, in their bigger cities. They got these skyscrapers. They're competing to build really high buildings. And now in Saudi, you can go into Mecca, believe it or not, and Jeddah. Riyadh, maybe, but Mecca and Jeddah, they're doing these skyscrapers there. They're competing with each other. And that's a hadith, actually, by the way. It was predicted 1,400 years ago that barefoot Bedouins were going to compete to build the tallest and highest buildings. There's another one that says that the last day would not come until the hour cast a shadow on the Kaaba. The hour. Now, here's the thing. The hour in Arabic means asa'a. So, Sa'at al-Ula means 1 o'clock, as an example. Sa'at al-Thani means the second hour or 2 o'clock. That's the word for hour. Did you know that that word also means watch or clock? See, in many languages, the word for hour and the word for clock or watch are different. In Arabic, the word for watch, clock, and hour are the same thing. Same word. The clock tower building in the wintertime cast the shadow on the Kaaba. I was there. I saw it. The clock tower building is also called Asa or Burj Asa. It means the clock tower, literally. You ask a cab driver, you don't even have to say the Kaaba, because taxis can't get right up to the Kaaba and drop you off. So you can say Burj Asa. They can get to about a block of it. Burj Asa, clock tower. That tower cast a shadow, literally, on the Kaaba. This was predicted 1,400 years back. So I don't apologize for what I believe. What I tell everybody is the solution. But the same messenger, peace be to him, said that one of the signs of the last day would be when the Bedouin would compete with each other to build these tall buildings. Now look at them, building skyscrapers. What does that mean? Elevator maintenance, HVAC repair and maintenance are valuable skills. I don't know if they would pay what you would make in the States, but you also would not have to spend what you have to spend in the States yet. There are multitudes of skills. Now, you probably could train people here with that. But right now, coding and education are the main fields. And actually, for us, you could start as an English teacher. Now, I like doing it, so that's my career. But you may start as one. And that means you have to learn the rules of English that you may take for granted as you speak it. And it doesn't have to be the Middle East work for everybody. It's, I don't think everybody could fit in one country. I'm sure they cannot. But HVAC pays stateside. And the thing is that for the most part, I think you're busiest in the summer, but I mean, it's heating and air conditioning. Heating, ventilation, and air conditioning that forms the acronym HVAC. The thing is that you can learn these things, and there are other places that you can go. And you're also, because of what you're able to do things like, for instance, you can sell some of these units and then do tune-ups on them before you sell them and add an extra guarantee or warranty on the units. Maybe that a brand new unit is sold, but the brand is not that good. But you can say, we do work on this brand. Before you buy it the first time, we do work on it. Then you can buy the brand cheap, or you can pay a little extra. We'll do the work in front of you. There are different ways that you can make dough in different places once you grab the skills. And we're sharing this knowledge with each other. This is why it is that I say that the pro-Black, authentic pro-Black space is the Black manosphere. And it's not limited to one nationality. People can sit up and talk about it's not pro-Black, but in actuality, being pro-Black means that you avoid women who don't respect you. And that's why we're avoiding the sisters. So we already know to avoid, let's say, Becky. We already know Becky don't respect us, leave her be. Every so often she'll show us that. Now, Jonathan Majors caught it twice. Didn't matter. He's learned dealing with Grace Jabbar, who held him down before he made it big. He didn't leave her till she turned on him, but then she turned on him. And followed the coaching all the way up until he got a conviction. She could have easily stood up and said, you know what? No, let him off the hook. And she never did. He got a conviction. Ran from her on video, and he got convicted. And then Making Good left him after his conviction. Same when it left, just ran out on Devon Franklin. She didn't even say, look, I'm out. No, she just ran out, disappeared on him. That's why he was crying. He was trying to figure out, what the hell did I do? Y'all remember that? They were making fun of Devon Franklin, and he took pictures out with his boys, and then they were talking about they all look zesty and sassy, and you know what they meant? They look 9-8 wide. So Jonathan Majors has shown us that you got to leave everyone that doesn't respect you. The Black manosphere already knew that. If we're leaving Sapphire because she can't stand us. If we're leaving Becky because she can't stand us, then that doesn't mean we just go run into the arms of somebody else that can't respect us unless we honestly didn't know that she couldn't respect us. And how do we normally know? Well, where do we usually go? We go to Latin America looking for sisters. They just speak Spanish. Or we're going to Southeast Asia where they actually prefer brothers. And if they don't prefer brothers, they just don't come after you. That's the thing about it. You don't have to do all you don't have to go fishing and trying in Southeast Asia. You go there, you a brother. The ones that like brothers will go for you. It's not that they all have to want specifically a brother, but the ones that do, they go checking for you. That's where brothers are going. Brothers are going where they're being checked for. So brothers in the Black manosphere, the BMPTs are not sitting up here and just running out, going up to all the women that don't like us and saying, here, use me for my passport and my greenbacks. He's not doing that. That's not what the BMPT is doing. The BMPT is going where he's being checked for. And of course, the sisters in the States and even the Beckys are going to sit up and say, well, they just going to exploit you more. Of course, they're going to say they're going to exploit you more. Y'all heard who was that said that? Yeah, Anton. Anton finally came along and said, yeah, you know what, brothers, get your passports. And the women on his platform are talking about, yeah, they're going to exploit you more. More, that means that she's admitting that the American women exploit us. She's admitting that. What Bilal said, jacketing, that term means paternity fraud. That's what they're about, the dual mating strategy. And they're mad because we're not letting them do it. They're mad because we're not letting them use us. They're crying. Wham. These men are taking their money. Who am I blame this baby on? Because the baby daddy, the real baby daddy, ain't got no money. I wouldn't have screwed him if he did, because that would have meant he had to be responsible. That's really what the crying is all about. They're pretty much saying, I don't F responsible men until they take care of my kids by irresponsible men. Maybe then. And even then, I'm going to stop one day. And if he leaves, I'm going to take half. Because responsible men are inferior. That's all they're saying. And now that you got brothers that are sitting up and saying, no, we're not doing this anymore, they want to sit up and say, well, they're just going to exploit you more. They're admitting that they exploited you. Admitting to it. Boasting about it even. She was 7. Why do you think she shows her face on there? Somebody's probably gotten her real name. They know her husband's name is James. They find out that she lives in a normal house. Why is she still making videos telling women to exploit the men when she's been exposed for not having any of that stuff? Because the hyenocracy lives by this. The message is more important than the messenger. They live by that. The message has to be one that is against you. It must be. And so when you start, you know that you got to leave them behind. You're not stupid enough to go somewhere where the women are going to exploit you and mess up another black family that you started. You're not dumb enough to do that. They have to deceive you. And most of you BMPTs that do go abroad, before you start families, you already profiling ladies to a certain extent. How so? It's based on who you're actually choosing and who you're not choosing. You're not going to Scandinavia to get feminist misandrist Becky that actually will just fetishize you. You're not doing that. Are there brothers that go there and the women are checking for them? Yeah, that's true. That does happen. But how many brothers are sitting up and saying, I'm going to get my passport and I'm going to get a skill just so that I can go to some really liberal nation where most of them don't know who the dads are and be used? Brothers ain't saying that. How many of you are actually sitting up and saying, well, you know what I'm going to do is I'm going to get this passport so that I can go over there to France, find me a French chick, and then be blamed for paternity, and I can't get a paternity test because the French courts don't allow it without their permission? Who amongst us is saying that? We're not sitting up and saying we're going to go run straight to Becky. We're not even sitting up and saying we're going to run straight to the Arab woman, even though they're checking for us right now. A lot of us do actually look at the situation because we know if a group of people don't like us that much. We know. And we're looking at the women from those groups that are checking for us, and we're like, what about the family? What's your family going to say? They ain't finna mistreat my kids. So most of us are actually doing what is pro-black. But we're doing it with a balance and a nuance that doesn't put us at the mercy of the Western hyena that hates us. And for that, the pro-wax are angry. And I'll tell y'all now, the pro-wax movement is something else. And it failed. That's why I'm sitting up and saying to you that what's going on, compassionate and callous? That's why I'm saying that now you are the pro-black, the authentic pro-black. Now it's you. The pro-wax came in and they flooded the pro-black spaces. And now, Brother Impolite, who lies about Islam, by the way, he does the same thing that hyenas do when they argue with black men who start thinking about what the community really needs. What does the black population really need? You know how the hyenas argue and they use tactics just to not admit the truth. That's what he did about Islam. And he did that more with Muslims than he did with other religions, even though he doesn't support any kind of monotheism. What did he say? He said that Malachi York was who he followed. And someone asked him, what about the charges? And he said, if Malachi York did this to 1,000 kids, he still follows him. He did say this. You can ask Bilal at the Features channel for those receipts. That's what the pro-wax did. They ruined everything. They ruined collectively just about everything that the elders had worked to try to build, because the elders were being patient with ratchet, ignorant N-words, stereotypes. The elders were giving them a chance to change. And what did they do? Started whispering to each other, hey man, you know, you can go over here. If you really mess your life up, you can go over here, find you something new, and you don't really have to read. And that's why I had to come up and say, look, we need a Malcolm X standard. You want to be a reformed N19, a reformed stereotype? Well, I ain't really with that no more. Okay, say it the way Malcolm would have said it. If English is not your first language, fine. Find whatever is your first language, learn it the way Malcolm learned English when he was locked up. When he came out, he could talk to an audience that was street or not street. You could walk up and talk to him in slang if you wanted, but if you didn't know all of that because you didn't live that life, you could still chat with him and chop it up and learn something from him and inform him and share with him what you knew, and he did it. Malcolm did this. Malik did this to himself. And what he started, or actually what he accelerated, that existed before, but what he accelerated just got damaged by people coming in like Malachi York. Oh, Malachi York, man, y'all look him up. How many identities has he had? How many identities has he had? I don't even know. He wins the award for Confused Negro of the Year, and that's been going on for decades, consecutively. It ain't stopped. I'm waiting on somebody else to be more confused than he was, and I ain't found him yet. But he's not the only one. I mean, Brother Impolite said he followed him. And now Brother Impolite, after lying about his charges and the evidence of his innocence, and I was willing to give him the benefit of that doubt for the time being, but after lying about it, he just went ahead and copped the plea. He had to go behind bars now. No, what's going on? Nature Boy. I don't have to tell y'all about Nature Boy. Some of y'all are gonna look him up. I think his real name is Eligio Bishop or Eligio. I don't know how he pronounces it, but it's spelled with a G. Eligio Bishop. I heard about him getting arrested. I didn't even keep up with him anymore after that. Dude's got a cult. Erase the ladies that his wives that do marry him. And then let's say that you defeat him in a debate. What is he gonna do? He's just gonna turn around and start throwing in ad hominems. There was one man I remember that was, and I put it, I featured that on one of my uploads. There was a guy that was telling him that the way that the cells are arranged and the way that the cosmos are arranged are not identical, like what he was saying, like Nature Boy was trying to say. Because you know, Nature Boy don't want to actually read anything too much and learn. Nature Boy would sit he would sit in his backyard in the States and say, yeah, man, I'm over here in Africa. And it'd be nighttime in Africa. And he'd be sitting under the sun in his backyard. You know he's in the Americas, whether it's the US or somewhere else. It was, you know, it's in the Americas on the western side of the Atlantic. Talking about, I'm over here chilling in Africa in the motherland. What? And when this guy said to him that no, there's a difference between the way that body cells are formed and the way that the cosmos are arranged. They don't mirror galaxies. When he started saying this, which is, you know, just biological and astronomical facts, it was like, look, bro, ain't nobody gonna take you light-skinned guys seriously, man. So he gonna bring skin color to try to discredit the guy's scientific knowledge. That's what he did. No joke. That's what he went to. And he's got a harem of broads following him with low self-esteem. Meanwhile, you being responsible. No, never mind that he made dirty movies with dudes. I'm not supposed to know about that, but he did. And I didn't even see the movie or any movies, didn't see them. But the covers They were shown to me. The I don't know if you want to say the DVD covers or the posters, they were shown. It was in them. The receipts, without breaking any laws, the receipts were shown to me, which is why I'm saying that. How you gonna sit up and talk pro-blackness like that? That's what that's what it wound up degenerating into and wound up becoming. And I knew because being in Atlanta for college, I saw the neo soul, earthy, pro-black women. I saw them. It was just as flighty and uncensored and goofy. But you got to be on point with everything. But then if you're too on point, you a white dude. Not for being race disloyal, but for being responsible. You have once you have to live a disciplined lifestyle, and she has to get with that program, then you a sellout. Yeah, they were goofy as hell. To be honest with you, Igor, what you're saying about that dude, I'm glad you don't know who he is. You should not know. I mean, actually, you probably should know what Filthy was talking about. Um, but you want to look at it very little. You want to learn a little bit about him at a time because you don't want to lose all your brain cells. Yeah, this dude is sick, man. And talking about some pro-black stuff. We got a lot of sexual deviants that made their way into pro-black spaces and became pro-wax. Because the original pro-blacks were not into that stuff. They did not see that as black, American, or African. They didn't see James Baldwin's particular preference as being black or African, but he did not fight for that. He fought for black folks. But then the deviants came along and they wanted to somehow bring their deviance into what it meant to be black and get that. And we were looking like, no, that's not what the hell it means. To be honest with you, even with some of the foolishness that Ayo Kimathi would talk, irritated genius Southeast. That was his YouTube name, but it was Ayo Kimathi. Even with some of the strange stuff he would talk, one of the things he did stand on was that sexual deviance was not to be made into something that was seen as black or pro-black. He said that we're not even to associate that with us, with our people and what it means to be us. We're not to associate that with Africa or its diaspora. And he had some odd ideas. There's one comment up here that I'm going to show. This one here. I want to point this out. When LOM, when you say this, you're actually being nice. They do care about the race. They want to destroy it. They're willing to do two things. And you can see this in their mating preference. Think about this, LOM. This is something we all know. When it's time to choose a bruh for them to pair bond with, date or marry, according to whatever they consider to be the right way to mate. Once it's time for them to choose a man according to what they think is the right way to mate, if he's going to be black, what kind of stereotypes does he have to be? Well, we already know. We've been talking about this ad nauseum. Then a man that's not black comes along, especially if he is a white, a colonizer, not another man of color, but a colonizer. Zan, a brand. Now, of course, today's white men are not technically colonizers, but see, that's not how the Sapphires are viewing them. They can sit up and say, don't call me that, black man. But what they don't understand is that when they get picked by a sister, she's picking them because they're colonizers in her mind. Specifically because of what their grandparents who were colonizers and kidnappers did, is why she's picking them now. She's not picking them even though they're not colonizers. She's picking them because in her mind they are. But they don't have to be the negative stereotypes attributed to us. They don't have to be on the road to the cell block or the cemetery to get a black one. They don't have to. So what that sister in the West is saying is, I will either destroy the race or I will dilute it but I am not willing to pick a black man that is actually good for the kids. I will not do that. No, that's what they're saying. The black men that are actually going to push us forward and bring into our population skills like engineering, repair, maintenance, STEM, or even language. We are not, those guys are going to be genetic dead ends. And the only exception will be if the older siblings of their kids from some other Negroes are going to be bad examples. That might be the exception. In other words, if she done already had a child for a trifling ninja, then you can have some kids with her because the older kid they're hoping will be a bad example. So if they're what they're pretty much saying is she's getting with you, there has to be something stifling there. But now, if she gets with a non-black man, especially specifically a Wyatt, then you see what I'm saying? So they actually do care about the race. They care to damage it or dilute it. Whatever's bad for us. And this here, their sexuality is linked to racism. And that's what I wanted to point out. And we've had discussions about this. It actually, the way to describe what we were discussing is that it is linked to racism. It's a hatred. Their sexual selection is based on a hate of black people, especially black men. This guy was a threat to the movement, Igor, and that was the whole point. And now, now he got arrested for something. I'm not sure, and I don't know if he's back out or what. But the thing is that he was allowed to go on. And this is true, LOM. But that's if he is a Brad. Matter of fact, if he's a bruh, he damn near has to have one of these problems. At least he's got to have a bunch of other baby mamas. If he's one of us Onyxes. So where does the most, you think about it, of the sectors of the black population of the West, diaspora and Anglosphere, what are the most pro-black sectors? Muslims that can separate Islam from Arab and Pakistani culture and other individual cultures that are very colorist. That's one. And they're doing it. They made themselves one of these sectors. They paid the cost for me to give them that compliment. And I've been waiting on this for years. That's one sector. And the BMPT is the other one. The BMPT has to be the other sector. Let me go into the YouTube screen because I want to make sure that none of these are being, okay, all right, yeah. What you put up, Lion, I wanted to make sure that it went through. I could see it on the StreamYard screen, so I was looking on YouTube to make sure this goes through. So I'm putting that for everybody to see. That right there. I don't know which channel it is, but I'm going to go and see it because you don't turn around and say stuff just for no reason. You would have been called out for doing that if you did. And I will go ahead now and try to, I want to try to see what that channel's about, actually. All right, this is about somebody that was divesting. Someone looks like the channel owner is against it. But the thing is, just from the titles, I can actually see that from the title, I can see that this person is actually against it, the channel owner. and they're bringing receipts of ladies that divested, swirled, and all this other stuff, and failed because of it. Um, we're going to have to go ahead and realize, though, that we are, in fact, the authentic pro-blacks that are left. And we're going to have to, since we're now aware of it, I mean, we've been that, but since we're aware of it, and we've witnessed the literal failure and implosion of what was referred to as the pro-black movement before, we're now going to have to actually start with the mission to save. And if that saving means that the moms are going to be from Southeast Asia and the next generation is going to be a mix of those that are Blasian and those that are internationally black, meaning a black Anglophone dad and a African Latina mom, and that those are going to be the next generation, so be it. Fine. I think that's pretty much going to be the next generation at this point. That's certainly going to be the next generation that gets represented as successful. That's going to be the next generation that's going to be Huxtable because they won't be broken. That is the next Huxtable. I'm not saying Cosby, but that is the next Huxtable generation, if not Cosby. That will be them. It will be the ones whose mothers, be they black or not, were not Westerners. That's going to be the next generation. And that's going to be where our population is actually going to have some hope. That's where. Jack and Jill, for those of you that did grow up Huxtable, you know about Jack and Jill. Jack and Jill was matrilineal. Is, to this day, as far as I know, it's matrilineal. The members are the mothers and their children. And the mothers form the committees that determine which other moms are going to be allowed in. And you have to be educated and classy, and your children need to be from a marriage, generally speaking, in order to get your kids into Jack and Jill. And they have their regional conferences every summer. I'm sure they still have them. Teen conferences. And they turn, this is the circle. Jack and Jill is one of these circles where the black middle class and upper class get to know each other. I met students at teen conference, and then I met some at summer prep programs, and then later on I would see them at Spelman and Morehouse. They're still in touch to this day. A lot of them on Facebook. They go to the same HBCUs. You might know someone and you meet them through a teen conference, and then years later you chop it up. You both go to Howard, or you both wind up at Hampton. Oh yeah, black middle class generally knows each other. But the black middle class, we have seen, due to class compression from pro-WAC ideologies, has pretty much begun to shrink and vanish and dissipate or get diluted. And when I say diluted, I mean in a good or bad way. Depends on who it depends on who the mom is, but that's what's happening. Because a lot of them brothers don't have the option to responsibly procreate with women of the same circles and the same ilk. It's not allowed. That ain't the brothers that are sitting up and saying, well, you know, I don't want no Huxtable chick. I want me a ratchet B word. It's not that. What's happening is that you're a man and you Huxtable, black and you ain't ratchet, and you're probably at least middle class or educated as one. You know how that is. You're shut out. You're not shutting them out. You're shut out. The Huxtable chicks are looking at you and saying, no, I'm not going that route because I need me a real man. That's what you're facing. And so then later on, what you decide that you're going to do is, well, you're going to have a family. You're not going to just be a genetic dead end. And guess what? That means you're not going to be, at no point are you going to be able to have a black family unless you leave the States. And not even that, but the Anglosphere. You learn this when you're young. You may not know that that's how bad it is, but you can see the beginning of it. And so what does this mean? This means that the next generation is not going to be Huxtable and Huxtable. They're not going to come from a Huxtable mom and a Huxtable dad. It's not going to be like that. Because the Huxtable daughter is going to choose either a stereotype from the wrong side of the tracks or a zaddy. And somebody's going to smut her out. And that's what it's going to be. And if you decide as a man that you're going to go for those women that grew up similar to you in the same neighborhoods, the same way, Huxtable like you, you're going to get the worst deal. Because she's trying to imitate the ratchet. She's just a sophisticated ratchet. And so the next generation is going to have to be, it's pretty much going to have to come from women that were not in the West and they were not in the Anglosphere. It's going to be, and that's what it means to be pro-black. It means you got to pick the mom that's going to be the best one. The wife that's going to be the best wife to you and take seriously her job as mom. Should y'all have kids? Everybody ain't going to have them, but should y'all? Yeah, should take that seriously. And it might be that dark-skinned Thai woman from one of the villages. Might be that Cambodian woman. By the way, Cambodian women are known to not use skin bleach. But I point that out to you. It may be that lady from the Philippines. It might be she may be from Tanzania if it's still traditional enough. She might be from Mozambique. But you're not going to be the ones that you're not going to have the option to pick someone that came up like you and trying to do that when you know that they're just going to take you for half and take your kids away. And that's if the kids are yours. And more than likely aren't even going to let you start with your own kids. Because of the stereotypical N19, you're not. Picking them then means that you're not pro-black. Omar Johnson's space is not it. And I'm going to say one more thing, and then I'm going to get ready to go because you all have been patient for 2 hours and 10 minutes, and I appreciate that. Thanks again for those that came through on Cash App. I'll state this about Anton. And maybe even Cat Williams too. One of the things that I've learned from both of them, a common lesson, is that there is such a thing as too late. You see, you, the Black manosphere, have led the Black male population into things like, oh God. Oh, tell me this is not true. No, not this one. I'm glad about that. I would do the same thing, actually. I already told people I would have I'd make it a drug offense here. I would treat skin bleach like a narcotic. If it was up to me, you distribute it large quantities, I'd execute you the same as if you did crack. And if you used it, the second time I would execute. But what I'm talking about here is this, what I put on the screen. Igor, I hope that's not true, man. But you know what? This is the other thing. With brothers, Black men going into these places, here and here, with brothers going into these places and preferring the women that otherwise would need to use skin bleach, what you think is going to happen? You got these brothers that are known to be romantic and are generally not bums, at least, and are probably even successful. Most romantic, and they like melanin in women, what y'all think's gonna happen? And there's one thing I do know. I will say this: Asian women, if you show them that you like them as they are, no skin bleach, they'll put that skin bleach off to the side. They're like, "F it, don't need to spend money on that now. I got this good husband, loves me, spoils me. Oh yeah, you go into Africa and you tell the ladies put that skin bleach up. Do not let me catch you with that again. Yeah, right. I'm not saying that all African women are defiant, but that's one thing you are not going to be able to tear away from them: the weaves, the wigs, and the skin bleach. There are women that don't use it, but if they do, you can't get them to stop. And I know. I tried to tell a Gambian woman once, cut that shit out. She was like, but what if the husband likes it? Trust you me. Like it more if you don't use it. You don't need it. So in any case, what I was going to get at is that there is such a thing as too late. And you brothers in the Black manosphere have rightly made the wall too late. It used to be that, and the reason why a lot of sisters now don't know that the wall is real or they think it doesn't exist or that you made it up is because they're just now hearing the terminology, the wall, because we're just now using it. But brothers finally decided to do the smart thing and say, you know what, the wall is too late. Don't hit the wall, then come to us. No, no, don't do that. You don't come to us when you hit the wall. Shuck that fear. Get out of our way with that. Get out of our face. Not that mess. No, 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 no. Don't come to us with that. You don't wait until your eggs dried up. You got them crow's feet around your eyes. Don't do that. So before that, my generation, we weren't doing it. Now, I actually like women close to my age if they're in shape, but a lot of people don't. And I think this is genetic. As a matter of fact, my son is younger than the lady with whom he's discussing marriage. Um, he's younger than her. My second wife is older than me. My dad's younger than my mom, and his granddad, my dad's grandfather, was younger than his wife, my great grandmother. So that might be genetic. But most of you brothers ain't into that, and that's okay. And you finally said, okay, you know what? You don't wait until you're old and used up and washed up to decide that you're going to get some sense about you. Come to us with sense while you're young and cute and hot and healthy. That's what you were saying. What's going on, Andre? And I salute you for that. I'm proud to tip my hat to you because you held that stand. I'm proud of y'all for that. You pretty much said, you know what, there is such a thing as too late. And we decide when that is. Now, what does this have to do with Cat Williams and Anthony? Well, Cat Williams didn't just come out swinging early on in his career, and he didn't say anything against anybody for nothing. And we can debate about how right he is or how wrong he is. I'm not really caught up in the celebrity stuff anyway, but they do teach lessons to us. And one of the things that he showed, one of the things we can tell from him is that he's not making this stuff up. He may misremember something, but he seems to have a very short memory. But he ain't just making stuff up. What Cat is pretty much saying is there's a point past which it is too late to come clean. He said, I gave Steve Harvey and Cedric a pass because they apologized. They already apologized for using my jokes. Now they're saying they didn't do it, and that's why I'm coming out swinging. And guess what? The footage showed him from before Cedric the Entertainer telling a joke. And he even said that he was getting on Cedric because when he told the joke, Cedric was there and the audience came backstage, told him how good he was, how funny that joke was. Then he told the same joke, changed it into a spaceship later on. So Cat was specific about why he had these beefs and these grudges. And he gave Gary Owens props for not selling out. Now, if Gary did sell out, he Pretty much, that means Cap doesn't know about it. But what Cap pretty much said was, you know what, he didn't cross over because he didn't sell out. What he's saying is there's a point past which it is too late, and we don't want to hear that. And that's fair. Anton is now sitting up and saying to the ladies, you know what, too late, I'm swapping. But there are guys in the black manosphere that looking at Anton and saying, we told you this a long time ago, shut up. We don't want to hear from you now. Close your mouth. It's too late. We said this and you didn't believe it. There are others that are saying, well, you know what? All he needed to do was hear the women show this about themselves. He wasn't taking our word for it. He gave the women a chance and they showed him that we were right. So it makes sense he came around now. But the point is that there is a standard, increasingly so amongst black men, of saying that some point must be too late. That is necessary. When we can work that out over time. But see, this was the mistake that the pro-black sector did not. Well, it was a mistake that they did not do this. They didn't make the mistake of having a point where it's too late. They made the mistake of not having a point where it's too late. They didn't define when is it too late to come around us and get conscious. I'm not blaming them for doing this intentionally. No, hindsight's always 2020. I'm simply telling you that the elders did not set something like that up, and that's when they made that error, and that was when the N19 stereotypes, the itness, the perpetual pookies, the irredeemable and irreformable rays came around. Talk rhetoric, but they still had a little N-word swagger because they wanted to make sure that you still knew they were street. They were no punks because there's nothing in between to them. The elders didn't set that up. They didn't have a registry of, no, ninja, it's too late. They kept no registry of those to whom they had preached the message and who shunned them and said, man, get that out of my face. I'm going to get this pork chop, this whiskey, and this white one. And I'm going to stay robbed until I get as much money as I want. That's where they messed up. They didn't know, like I said, I'm not blaming them. They didn't know, but now we do, and we are within our rights. As a matter of fact, we are compelled to pick some point at which we start saying, no, ninja, it's too late. I don't know if it needs to be where Anton was. Does it need to be when we talk to them the first time? Maybe it should be when they start to spit out the stereotypes. I'm not sure yet, but I know that point needs to be defined, thought about, well thought of, and then defined publicly. And at that point, we'll be in a better position to get the message out because it will be more unified. And we have to get that message out broad. And it might very well be that we might need to stop focusing on the black men of the Anglosphere diaspora that can't seem to hear us. Maybe we need to stop and start looking at expanding this to the continent and to tropical parts of Asia and Latin America. Because believe you me, there's a red pill community in Germany, Brazil, South Africa, apparently Angola too. Nairobi. Yeah, Nairobi has a black manosphere. I can't find a link to it, but I saw the video to it last night and then I got interrupted. And that's something to pay attention to. So we might need to hurry and get this message out. Because if there is a red pill community or black manosphere, that means that they are seeing something. And it might mean that we might need to start using that Negro superpower and get that message out, that influence that we have that we weren't even trying to, and start using that for their benefit. We might need to start doing. Um, Andre 416 said something. He said he'd been in a few Afrosphere spaces. Now, what you mentioned, Igor. So you've said in comments where you are, and I think that what's going to wind up happening is that you're not going to be the only one. I mean, as it is, um, y'all are what, 2.5 hour flight from South Africa? That tells me something. So you may be the only one that you know, but I don't think you'll be the only one there, and I don't think it's going to be that way for long. Eventually, somebody else is going to find maybe not my channel, but someone's channel, and they're going to be able to say, uh, "Yeah, I see what you said here. Yeah, exactly." And that's one of the things about social media. It allows you to find people with common interests. It can become an echo chamber. It's true. But when you are convinced that you're right because you saw something and people are trying to tell you that you didn't see what you saw, then that's when an echo chamber is needed. Maybe not for opinions, but for observations. Absolutely. Yep. I remember that one. I do remember. So in the future, there are going to be some videos. Most of the time, I'm still going to be here on YouTube. But in the future, there are going to be some videos that I'm only going to put up on Odyssey, but I will put the links in the community tab so that you can see them. Um, and that will be if it's something that I think that that YouTube may take down. I'm going to let you guys know now that um, we're going to have to start. We really are overdue for this. I've talked about this for years. We're going to have to boycott anybody that we know is a simp. See, you guys know what it's like on the ground there. I know what it's like on social media. But you guys are going to, we are actually going to have to start um, boycotting those who simp. And that means even if they're doing it for their daughters, you can love your daughters responsibly and not simp for them. That is possible. And we need to make that such. It's an issue when um, it's a major issue when men can do this and they feel, even though the tide is changing and the information is out there, if it's really this bad on the ground, then it means something that the men can see this information, not opinions just, but specifically information on social media, and still remain simps. FD Signifier is an example. We need to start boycotting cats like them in real life. Let them know, look, we'll tell you, we'll inform you at first, but if you insist, uh, on simping afterwards, then we'll make sure that we don't support anything you go into. If we find out that you have invested in a business, um, then we won't support that particular, but you bought some stock, we won't buy it. If you are buying stock in, I don't know, cat food, then that means you don't really even believe it. Because who's going to get these cats? Single women. Dog food too. But if you are getting, I don't know, if you're buying stock in a particular clothing line, we just don't buy it. Now, I'm not saying that you do this regarding guys you don't know. If you don't know, you don't know. But for those of us that do know and we are sure, we need to start going ahead and letting others know. If there's a way you can prove that somebody's a simp, go ahead. FD Signify proved the case against himself. But if you can prove that someone else is, if you can prove that I simp, dox me. I mean, I don't mean put my name, my not that, but I mean, if you can prove that I simp, boycott my channel. Yeah, Ego, I am about to shut this down. I am about to. But that's the other thing too. You know what? Another thing we need to do is Andre 416, you're in Canada. And if they're not focusing, then you know what? Welcome to the channel and welcome to the space. And the other thing too is go ahead and feel free to start it. Start one of your own. If you build it, they'll show up. So go ahead and become a pioneer in that particular space in Canada and let us know what's going on. It's the same and what's different. That would help out. And so with that being said, you guys have been very patient with me, and I hope that I was able to benefit you. And I want to thank again those that came through and benefited me. Armando and Brandon and Indigo, from the bottom of my black heart and from the depths of my black mind. Simba, we're going to catch up and talk more about what you experienced today. And I might be able to do another live this week, but I'm not optimistic. However, if by Wednesday there's no live, then I'm going to go back to premieres because of the limited speed of my internet back where I live. So thank you all for listening. As always, black heart, black mind, black out. Assalamu alaikum, and black heterosexual non-select male power because they don't like it. And black patriarchy until extinction or judgment day. And when this jet black aircraft does dock at the gate and you exit, please do go to that link with the merchandise and get some merchandise that you can wear in transit and abroad so that we may recognize each other. And only after you have done that, then if you have anything left over, feel free to punch the Cash App button and only put in numbers that are going to be easy for you, especially this time of year, because you Negroes celebrated Christmas, didn't you? All right. Thank you again for flying with us on Jet Black Airways, where Jet Black is also a verb. And thank you to Compassionate and Callous for the logo that made the thumbnail for this. And keep jetting black with us until the wings and the wheels fall off. Gender justice forever.